Where are they?
They're here. They're not all here yet. Do you want?
Is Floyd,
No. You need to call them.
I'm saying though, have another one.
is Floyd here yet?
It would go in with, it would go in with local government education week, which is the first week of April.
Who's that?
That's your call to get into the town hall.
See if I have one.
It's that time to get up and
Yeah, I do. What I'm just trying to do, I've got this up. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it back to where that I want to file, February. There's like names I need to see. So that's what I'm looking for.
I guess I'll have to do it.
It just keeps on turning. It came up a minute ago.
everywhere.
I don't know.
God, it's hot in here.
It's already warm. You are correct.
It came up, I had it up when you came up, and I went back to I get February. Does anybody have I want the February, information. February information, yeah, this one right, yeah. Good. Very good. Perfect, thank you. How'd you know I needed you?
Yeah. It's not like it's a sound barrier, that's right.
Oh, well, I did say that. So I'm just trying to find this. It's on here. Well, okay, I got something else to ask. You can take my phone with you. Here's what's happening. Like on my phone, when we put that Nexus account, when I go to send it out, it won't send out. Won't send an email from you. Not from my Nexus account. So we just take it back there, you play with it.
And doesn't that have to do, have you logged on to your own, do you put your password in
They
to
did.
your own server?
I think they did. Because I
Or
started
router?
getting them in. What are the names? Can you help me before we start? What are the names of the two people who applied for the ED? Economic Development?
Well, we've got a whole matrix. One is not town resident. Here,
Oh, yeah.
this guy is
What's his name?
Nathan Berg.
Nathan Berg.
Alex Brown is not.
I'll tell you one, both of them have good credentials. You know? Do we have somebody else on in town that wants on ED?
Well, again, if we stick to what we've already done for 2 years.
You're still having trouble selling the house. You really?
Welcome to the March 5th Abingdon Town Council meeting. Okay. And I am going to ask Kim Kingsley to call the roll, please. I'm sorry, it says Greg Kelly, Town Manager.
I'll pass and let Kim do it. She's the deputy clerk.
Okay. Very good.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Patterson?
Here.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphries?
Here.
Mayor Leck?
Here. Okay. One second. And I'm going to ask Ms. Patterson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, we have February the 5th, February the 12th, and February the 20th minutes. Actually, February the 20th has no minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mayor Lowe, I see that there's some changes that needs to be modified on February 5th,
Okay.
page number 14. It says, it's in the paragraph there where it asks, about the lease agreement for Mr. Moore. And the vote was, everybody said aye, and it shows Mr. Craig and I saying nay. And I just needed those to be, we needed those to be changed, please, madam.
Alright.
And in the
Wait
February,
just a second, let me,
Oh, I'm
let me
sorry.
see if I can
Excuse me.
find it.
But Mr. Carey needs to agree with that too, Sandy.
okay, yes. I agree with that too, Wayne. You may need to
Wayne
agree
has
with
to agree with
that
that
as well.
too.
Yeah, I voted yes.
Which reminds you about putting stuff, stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Is that, you all right with the next one now?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on to February 12th special call meeting minutes, on page number 21. Paragraph mentioning, questioning that, whether Ms. Eisenhower is co-counsel in the matter. And it reads all the way down to Mr. Kelly again stated that Ms. Eisenhower was never co-counsel, that she was named defendant in this matter. And then I said, you know, that I understood that she was went into the chambers as co-counsel with Mr. Flynn. And Mr. Kelly said that, if he would have been there, he would have advised her, Ms. Eisenhower, not to do that. And you'll want to check the video for precise, wording on that, please.
So do you have precise wording?
That is what I recall, ma'am.
Okay, so then what you're saying is that you'd like the video to be, reviewed.
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't want to approve the minutes until they are.
We'll have to
Well,
table them.
everything else looked good except for that one.
We'll need to table them for work,
Yeah,
correct?
we'll
I
have to
can
table,
table,
yeah.
that's fine.
And I'm sorry, but my, I annotate doesn't have, the same number, so I'm just scrolling around here. Just give me a minute.
You want me to show you, Ms. Madam Mayor?
Mhm.
There's page 21 right here.
No, not that one, the other one.
The other one that's on page 12.
On your page 14, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, page 14, yes, ma'am. There's two different page numbers
I
on
see.
there, page 7 and page 14. It depends on whether you add the agenda or not.
About Dr. Moore's property?
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, question.
No, the voting, the vote.
But that's not about Dr. Moore's property. That's the reason I was confused. That's about Mark Flynn.
No.
The
I mean,
first thing she's talking
The
about.
first one
that's
was
the
different.
first one was Dr. Moore's.
Okay, and where's that?
It was
It
on,
says page 14. Let's see if it's page 7.
It was right there beside me when you had a minute ago.
Oh, that's it, right there. Look on page 7 with the,
Page 7,
With
not
the
page
agenda.
14. I see.
let's see, it says page 14 right here,
Mm-hmm,
right there.
yeah. And then 7.
Okay, I see
You
it now.
got it now?
I was looking at page 14,
So
I
that
couldn't
was,
find it.
what you're saying is that all should have been aye votes.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
All should have been aye votes.
so for the February the 5th regular meeting, do I have a motion to approve with Ms. Patterson's changes?
And Mr. Craig's.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
What-
roll call, please.
Well,
On February the 5th,
okay,
it's the only minutes we're looking at.
okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
roll call.
Mr. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
and Mayor Lo.
Okay, aye. February 12th minutes, we are going to, have on the next council agenda, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
After, the video is reviewed for corrections. And the, closed session had no minutes. Okay.
Right.
Okay, and at this moment, the February 20th closed session had no minutes to approve, so at this moment, council, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Madam Mayor, may I just clarify this, since there's several things going on with, legal matters? Is this in regards to the EEOC matter?
It was the closed session you requested.
So that is the EEOC matter?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's all we'll be discussing in there,
Yes, ma'am.
correct? Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. It's for a motion.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Council, do I have a motion to go back into open session?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion by
Ms.
Ms. Patterson, second by Vice Mayor Humphries. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. Okay, council, do I have a motion, no, certification, please?
Whereas the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the Town Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Town Council.
I so certify.
I so certify.
Also certified.
I so certify.
Also certified.
Okay, thank you. Now, council, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move that the council approve the tentative resolution of the EEOC matter addressed before the EEOC on February 20th, 2018, and authorize the mayor to execute any and all documents required to finalize the resolution, and further, that the council exercise its rights under Virginia Code 2.2-3705.1 and keep the terms of the resolution and any documents pertaining thereto confidential as required by the EEOC.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. Thank you. So if I could ask everyone if you will check your phone and make sure you have it on silent. And at this time, the council will hear public comments from those citizens registered to speak.
Presentational leadership. Washington County.
Sorry, I thought I had them after that. After public comments. Is it before?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wrote it down. Okay, so we have the presentation for the leadership of Washington County, Miss Sarah Saavedra, who is also the town events coordinator, here tonight to talk to us about leadership.
Thank you very much. I appreciate putting us on the agenda. As you mentioned, I'm an employee of the town of Abingdon, but tonight here as a resident expressing our appreciation for agriculture and the role it plays in our community. Joined here today by just one member of our leadership group, Jeff Jones. We have someone else in Damascus getting support also for this resolution, and a couple of others out. But as part of our team project this year, we chose to highlight agriculture in the town of Abingdon and Washington County and pursue a formal proclamation for this. A few reasons we feel like this is important and a couple of key facts I just wanted to share with you to remind everyone here of how outstanding our agricultural community is. Ag Appreciation Day has been set nationally as the third Tuesday of March every year in order to recognize and celebrate the abundance provided by agriculture. Agriculture gives us the very necessities of life, and we hope this proclamation will encourage our community to come together and celebrate our agricultural heritage. Agriculture is the top industry, as most of us know here in Washington County, and Abingdon is consistently a leader in Virginia and the nation, as I know with my tenure as the Farmers Market Manager for 4 years. In 2009, Abingdon Farmers Market was the first farmers market in Virginia to accept food stamps. This opened access to our residents most in need that they didn't have for cheaper, fresh produce, and also a new revenue stream for our farmers that they weren't able to access at that time. This led to Abingdon being used as a model for farmers markets across the nation on the USDA's website and also across Virginia through programs that they had to teach other farmers markets in Virginia how to do the same at their markets. NPR Here and Now also featured Abingdon Farmers Market in 2011 on its show. So Abingdon has been leading the markets in our region and providing support, best practices, and advice to new markets in the area for years and years, as I'm sure you all know, and encouraging new businesses as a small business incubator. For example, White Birch Juice started there at the farmers market and now is a thriving business. So thank you for considering our proposal to formally recognize the importance that agriculture plays in our town, our region, and of course, ultimately the nation.
So council, I would like to read the proclamation, and it says, whereas National Agricultural Day will be celebrated on the third Tuesday of March for all to recognize and celebrate the abundance provided by agriculture in the town of Abingdon and across the United States. American agriculture plays a very critical economic and food security role in our town, county, and country. Whereas the Agricultural Council of America hosts the campaign on a national level, however, the awareness efforts in communities across America are as influential, if not more, than the broad-scale effort. The program encourages every American to understand how food and fiber products are produced, value the essential role of agriculture in maintaining a strong economy, appreciate the role agriculture plays in providing safe, abundant, and affordable products. Whereas agriculture provides almost everything we eat, use, and wear on a daily basis. Too few people truly understand this contribution. This is particularly the case in our schools, where students may only be exposed to agriculture if they enroll in related vocational training. By building awareness, the Agriculture Council of America is encouraging young people to consider career opportunities in agriculture. Whereas each American farmer feeds more than 144 people, a dramatic increase from 25 people in the 1960s. Quite simply, American agriculture is doing more and doing it better. As the world population soars and there's an even greater demand for food and fiber produced in the United States. Whereas Washington County has deep roots as a rural community where farming was and still is very important to the overall character and economic strength of the county. Preserving our agricultural resources also provides opportunities to conserve and efficiently use other resources such as water, scenic, and environmentally sensitive features. Whereas in terms of total revenue generated, agriculture and agricultural-related industries represent the #1 industry in Washington County, a $76.5 million market value for products sold, $69,866,000 in livestock sales, and $69,866,000 in livestock sales, and $6,633,000 in crop sales. Livestock and dairy are the major components of the agricultural industry in Washington County. Washington County is one of the largest livestock marketing centers east of the Mississippi, selling over $40 million in livestock annually between 3 markets located in the county: Tri-State Livestock Market, Abingdon Stockyard, and C&H Cattle Company. Tobacco, horticulture, Christmas trees, farm supply businesses, lending institution, and equipment dealers are integral crops or related businesses considered as part of the agriculture industry in Washington County. The agriculture industry employs 1,058 workers, which represents $4.324 million in wages according to the 2012 Census of Agriculture. Whereas Abingdon Farmers Market was established in its current location in 2007, it has become the go-to place for people seeking locally grown meat, dairy, and produce, as well as freshly prepared foods and various artisan creations. Now, therefore, I, Kathy Lowe, Mayor of the town of Abingdon, do hereby proclaim the third Tuesday of March 20 as Agriculture Appreciation Day in the town of Abingdon, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Agricultural Appreciation Day and to appreciate the role agriculture plays in providing safe, abundant, and affordable products. Sarah. Thank you for participating and making this your project. Thank you for coming. Okay. Now we're at public comments. So at this time, the council will hear public comments from those citizens registered to speak. Please come forward to the podium as your name is called. Restate your name, state your address, identify any organization you represent. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments. Each speaker will be timed by the town clerk once your comments begin, and you will be given a cue when 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers are reminded that neither council members or staff will address questions or otherwise engage with speakers during the public comment period. And the first person is Tom McMullen.
Good evening, folks. My name is Tom McMullen, live at 267 Whites Mill Road. I'm a member of the Sustained Abingdon Committee, although I'm actually here as a private citizen for tonight. I'm also an avid gardener, as many of you probably know. I think many of us would agree that the deer population in town has gotten rather high. That's certainly a big nuisance in my yard. So I figured instead of complain about it, I'd like to offer a solution. Some other folks and I have been working on this over the last year, and tonight I brought with me Dr. David Kalb, who'll be talking next for 3 minutes. He's from the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. He's a wildlife biologist and the Elk Project Leader Coordinator. I'd like to read and enter a letter into public record, and when I'm through, can I give the signed letter to somebody? Who do I give it to? Okay. All right. Dear Abingdon Town Council, we are part of a group of town residents who are concerned about the deer densities within the town limits causing damage to ornamental plants, vegetable gardens, and potential deer vehicle collisions. We originally planned to present the solution to the town council meeting, but we missed the March agenda deadline, so we're talking now. After talking with various town employees about deer concerns, we've learned that there have been numerous complaints that the town does not have a feasible solution for managing those concerns. We have gathered information from the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and they have presented a practical response to our citizens' concerns by way of their urban archery deer hunting program. In order for the town of Abingdon to participate in the urban archery program, the town would need to provide a letter of participation to Game and Inland Fisheries. Currently, the deadline for this, for the DGIF, is to receive a letter by April 1st, 2018, but we have applied for an extension until April 5th, and I believe we've actually got a couple of day extension on that. We've invited a DGIF representative to attend this meeting and give a brief presentation and information about the urban archery program during the public comment section coming up next. We request that the town submit a letter to DGIF to express the town's intent to participate in the urban archery program, and but that an official vote for this will not occur until the April 2nd meeting. Sincerely, myself and Melissa Kalb.
Thank you. And the next person is David Kalb.
Madam Mayor, Town Council, thank you for your time. My name is Dr. David Kalb. I live at 1151 Panorama Drive, and I am here representing the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries as requested by Tom. I'm here to just talk about the urban archery program. Multiple sources of information have let us know, including DGIF and our wildlife helplines, have suggested there's a urban problem associated with white-tailed deer densities. Currently, Washington County has a high density on private lands, and we are currently not meeting our objective of lowering that. So that affects Abingdon. The best control measure for deer populations is human harvest. Urban archery can provide needed measures to remove animals from the landscape and encourage animals to stay out of areas where they are unwelcome or causing human conflicts. This should be accompanied by a prohibition on feeding within the town, and fewer restrictions generally increase harvest. Since its establishment in 2002, urban archery has not seen a single second-person injury associated with harvest. or with hunting. And that includes that we have not had an archery incident since 1996 as a second person. Urban archery is flexible for both localities and for hunters. And it also produces meat associated with pantries donations through the Hunters for the Hungry program. Since hunters dedicate their own time to harvest these animals and there is no cost associated with the town or the program, and standard bag limits for hunting apply to each hunter. Currently, there are 49 locations throughout the state of Virginia that participate in urban archery, and most citizens within these town limits are very satisfied with the program. We are asking for a letter of intent from the board that you are interested in participating in the program, and an official vote and letter by an extended date of April 4th, 2018, if you are interested in participating. Thank you.
Okay, so Vice Mayor Humphreys has asked if everybody in this room is warm, and the answer is yes. Can you do something about the, thank you, Tony. Okay. Petitions, public hearings, and first reading of ordinances. Consideration of final plat for proposed subdivision of property Edward M. Fuqua, the second owner at 829 Wolf Creek Trail, consisting of 2.18 acres more or less and currently zoned R3. Tax map number 104A-A-25 requesting an exemption to the requirements set forth in Appendix A, Section 5.18 of the town zoning ordinance. Mr. Jason Boswell, Interim Director of Planning.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Honorable Council. This public hearing is for the consideration of final plat for a proposed subdivision of property for Mr. Edward Fuqua. The property was located at 829 Wolf Creek Trail, consisting of 2.1 acres more or less and currently zoned R3, namely tax map number 104A-A-25. Waiver or modification to the requirements set forth in Appendix A, Section 5.18 was requested by Mr. Fuqua. Section 5.18 states that unless otherwise provided herein or in the town zoning ordinance, there shall be no private streets platted in any subdivision. Every subdivided property shall be served from a publicly dedicated street constructed to the standards of this code and accepted and maintained by the town of Abingdon. There shall be no reserved strips controlling access to streets. The town staff recommendation is that the town of Abingdon does not wish to accept a street that has no obvious connection or value into the town system for perpetual maintenance. In addition, the street construction would face topographic issues and potential drainage concerns. All setback frontage and yard regulations for the underlying zoning district shall be utilized from the 20-foot easement for ingress and egress. The Planning Commission approved the final plat at its January 22nd, 2018 meeting. The Planning Department and Planning Commission recommends approval of the final plat with the conditions imposed by the Planning Commission.
So this was a recommendation of the Planning Commission.
It was a town recommendation and it was approved by the Planning Commission.
Vice Mayor Humphreys, do you have anything to say about this?
No, this is long-term residents out there, and the Fuquas, that are on Wolf Creek Trail, right off Wolf Creek Trail. And actually it will not change any of the topography or anything else. And so we recommend it because of that it would be recommended.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions of Mr. Boswell? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the final plat for the Edward M. Fuqua property at 829 Wolf Creek Trail.
I'll second that.
Okay. Do you have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
And Mayor Lo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And consideration of application for a special use permit pursuant to 15.9 utilization of the flood hazard district, Tanya Page owner and Jim Fern, 186 Park Street, currently zoned B1, tax map number 013-6-11 dash, there's no number. Jason Boswell. Yeah, dash no number.
Madam Mayor, Honorable Council, this public hearing is for special use permit for an addition to the property of Tanya Page and Jim Firm located at 186 Park Street, consisting of .15 acres more or less and currently zoned B1, namely tax map number 013-6-11. The special use permit is pursuant to the Town of Abington's zoning ordinance, section 15-9, utilization of the flood hazard district.
Is this a public hearing, or have we already had the public hearing on this?
No, this is a public hearing. One was necessary at both Planning Commission and before the council.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's not on the agenda, so we need to,
No, it's listed as under public hearings, should be.
okay. Okay.
A,
So let's go backwards then. So Mr. Fuqua needed to be a public hearing also?
No.
Okay. Okay.
it was required to be a public hearing because it was a modification.
Oh, you're correct.
Section
I stand
5.1.
corrected.
Okay.
It's because we were modifying.
Okay, so we're gonna go backwards 1 minute.
Okay.
And I open the public hearing for the consideration of the final plat, for the proposed subdivision of the property Edward M. Fuqua. If anyone would like to speak to this, we can, rescind the motion previously made. Would anyone like to speak about the consideration of the final plat for the proposed subdivision of property Edward M. Fuqua II at 829 Wolf Creek Trail? And for the third and final time, would anyone like to speak to the final plat for proposed subdivision of property Edward M. Fuqua II, 829 Wolf Creek Trail? Okay. I will close the public hearing, and
Madam Mayor, may I make a suggestion
I would like to ask Mr. Craig if he will renew his motion.
or rescind it?
Mayor, I rescind my motion regarding the Edward M. Fuqua property at 829 Wolf Creek.
And I'll rescind my second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
And Mayor Lo?
Aye. Now, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, I move that we approve the final plat for the proposed subdivision of property of Edward M. Fuqua II at 829 Wolf Creek Trail.
Okay,
And I'll second.
all right. Roll call.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
And Mayor Lo?
Aye. Okay, and now we are at the consideration of application for a special use permit pursuant to 15.9, utilization of flood hazard district, Tanya Page and Jim Fern, owner, 186 Park Street, currently zoned B1. And I am going to open the public hearing. And would anyone like to speak to this matter?
Richard Macbeth, 1139 Panorama Drive in Abington. I'd like to find out what is the special use permit they're asking for. And there's nothing in there to tell us what it is. So I would like more information on that so we can have a better understanding of what they're asking for.
I'm a little bit aware of the ordinance, but the
Yeah.
ordinance, the floodplain ordinance requires special use permits if you are building in the floodplain. Is that correct, Mr. Boswell?
Yeah, it's,
And this is the one.
yeah,
Go ahead.
that's, I just wanted more information,
Okay.
that's all.
So if you'll come up and read that, please.
The special use permit is pursuant to the Town of Abington zoning ordinance, section 15-9, utilization of the flood hazard district. Section 15-9 states, all uses, activities, and developments occurring within any flood hazard district shall be undertaken only upon the issuance of a special use permit. Such development shall be undertaken only in strict compliance with the provision of this article and with all other applicable codes and ordinances, as amended, such as the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code and the Town of Abington subdivision regulations. Prior to the issuance of any such permit, the administrator shall require all applications to include compliance with all applicable state and federal laws and shall review all sites to assure they are reasonably safe from flooding. Under no circumstances shall any use, activity, and/or development adversely affect the capacity of the channels or floodways or any watercourse, drainage ditch, or any other drainage facility or system. A hydrologic impact analysis was performed by Bundy Architecture and Engineering. Based on this analysis and Mr. Bundy's professional opinion, the addition as proposed to the rear of the building will not cause a rise in the 1% change base flood elevation of greater than 1 foot. The Planning Commission approved the special use permit for construction in a flood hazard district at its January 22nd, 2018 meeting. The Planning Department and the Planning Commission recommends approval of the special use permit in a flood hazard district.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak to the consideration for a special use permit for 186 Park Street? And for the final time, would anyone like to speak at the public hearing for the special use permit at 186 Park Street, Tanya Page and Jim Fern? Okay. I will close the public hearing. Council, what's your pleasure?
The Planning Commission heard this. Matt Bundy, when they did the doing the water, was 1% or less, and so, no, but it was 1% or less. That being said, it was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission to send on to the council here to provide their recommendation for that. So that's our side of it.
Okay. Anybody else? Council, do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the special use permit for pursuant to 15.9 for tax map number 103-6-11.
013.
013, excuse me.
I'll second that.
I've got my Monday eyes on.
Okay. Mr. Humphries moved and Ms. Patterson second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. Thank you. Okay. We are down to reports from the town. There are no second readings of ordinances, no consideration of bids, and reports from the town manager. Update on health insurance, Mr. Sam Brown, our health insurance consultant.
Your microphones are muffled. That's what it is. Yeah, let me hear.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do with your permission is pass out some information. So you can kind of follow along on what's going on this year. I want to give you an update on local choice. Our claims have been running, how our renewal has come out this year, and recommendations for the health care coverage for the town employees. If you would, let's start right at the top there. The renewal date for the Town of Abingdon, Virginia Local Choice Plan is July 1st, 2018. Each year, the state of Virginia prepares the renewals for delivery by the middle of February, so a decision can be made by April 1st. During the review period, the amount of claims paid by local choice for this year, as compared to last year, increased by $123,000. Now remember, under local choice, the only thing they look at when they look at medical is medical claims only. Your prescription drug claims aren't included in that. Your dental claims are not included in that. Mental, nervous, alcohol, drug abuse claims are not included in that figure. So pure medical claims went up $123,000. While our medical claims increased, the pool cost for prescription drugs increased 14.9%, and the dental increased 3.6%. Based on our experience, the rates for our plan will increase by 9.5% on July the 1st. Last year, we went out to bid. When we received the bids back, we had last year more people on our plan and a more favorable experience. Of all the bids that we received, the closest to local choice was over 15% higher. We didn't go out to bid this year, number one, because the state of Virginia and local choice meets all the state of Virginia Procurement Act laws. So that's not an issue. But to go out again this year with fewer contracts and higher claims, we weren't going to get a competitive bid this year, since we didn't last year and we looked more favorable then. So my recommendation was to take the local choice plan. This year we offered two plans. We offered the Key Advantage 500 and we offered a high deductible health care plan. We only had one person on the high deductible health care plan and they actually dropped off. So everyone now is on the Key Advantage 500. And it is a terrific health care program. This year what I'm suggesting is we put in a second option again, but instead of putting in that high deductible health care plan, we can put in a Key Advantage 1000. And if you'll look on the second page, what I've done is a comparison of the two plans side by side. With a 9.5% rate increase on our Key Advantage 500, there's a 4% increase on the Key Advantage 1000. This would let the employees choose which plan is best for them. The difference between the two plans, Key Care Advantage 500 has a $500 deductible, Key Care Advantage 1000 has a $1,000 deductible. Key Advantage 500 has a $4,000 out-of-pocket stop loss for an individual. Key Advantage 1000 has a $5,000 stop loss. But for those people who have dependents covered under the plan, this can save them a significant amount of money every month. So I suggest that we renew with local choice, put in these two options, and let the employees choose which option they would like to have for the 2018-2019 contract years. Any questions?
I have some. So why would an employee choose the higher deductible option? If I'm gonna have to get Mr. Banner and Mr. Kelly, I guess, to weigh in on this. The town of Abingdon, and correct me if I'm wrong, pays 100% of the employee's insurance premium. Is that correct?
Currently.
Currently, okay. I'm just, so what does the town of Abingdon pay for the dual and the family as far as percentages? That we pay on that also, is that correct? Do you know what that percentage is?
No, I leave that up to the town to set those.
Okay.
What we had hoped to do, Madam Mayor and members of council, what we had hoped to do, and Mr. Banner and Stacy Reichler, our HR director, have met and we've analyzed these numbers. As we work through our budget work sessions, we have some proposals to make to you, which will demonstrate how this 1000 plan could be appealing, and also the 500 plan could be appealing to others. It will involve the town not paying 100% of the increase in the health insurance the way that we have it proposed. And that's something we had hoped to be able to share with you at one of the three upcoming, or two upcoming budget work sessions in greater detail.
Okay.
And Chuck and Stacy are very well versed with the formulas that we've come up with, and we've actually talked to the various department heads about this, and we think it's a fair proposal, and hopefully the council, once we're able to present it to you, you'll think likewise as well.
Okay. So for the budget work session, whatever date that is going to be, and I think we're going to announce that later on, if you will when we talk about insurance, if you will let us know what percentage we pay on dual and what percentage we pay on family, so that we'll have that
We
answer.
don't need to know it right now.
No, I said when we have our work
Well,
session.
Chuck was looking down like he was gonna find it, so.
I can tell you that, you need to know the annualized amounts, I don't have the percentage.
I think we need to talk about this in further detail at one of our, work sessions. Do you, council, have any other questions?
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
You are very welcome.
Sometimes we like to see you come and sometimes we don't. This
Oh.
is not we'd always like to see you, but this isn't it's in good news.
We liked you
Well,
better than yet last year.
You know, I understand that.
Right.
You know, but I try to make it exciting. for
You do.
I will say Sam has brought us a lot of good news in the past.
He has. He has. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Update from Tourism Department, Jane Deering.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us some time. I want to share with you some great news. On February 24th, the Abingdon CVB had a very distinguished award bestowed upon them. They entered the 2017 Creeper Fest campaign, and this was the first ever Creeper Fest. It was under the project leadership of Sarah Saavedra, with marketing manager Amanda Livingston, and under the design of J.R. Linkus. We won a gold for that effort, for that campaign. We won Best of Show of all of the entries, and those were bestowed or judged by out-of-town judges. And we won People's Choice, so that meant that everybody there voted for Creeper Fest. So thank you for your support. I want to say this year is the second annual Creeper Fest, and Sarah, again, under her project leadership. This year, she has involved a volunteer task force that has enabled us to reach more members of the community. We've added events, and we anticipate, and the interest, according to Facebook, is already well above last year. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you for your investment, not only on this event, but all the arts and culture and outdoor events that you do. Not only does it add to the quality of life for our residents, but it attracts visitors who eat, sleep, play, stay, and then repeat and come back and do all of those things. So that's your return on investment, and we thank you, quality of life. I want to talk about a new event, also under the project leadership of Sarah Saavedra. By the way, Sarah Saavedra is the project leader on 27 of your town events throughout the year. This year we have a new event, a block party on Main Street, and the entertainment will be a group called Rubik's Groove, and the players dress up like classic 80s characters, and yes, I did use classic and 80s in the same sentence. It's going to be a lot of fun, very family friendly. We also want to thank you for your work on the urban pathway. We have already been planning on how to extend Abingdon's bike friendliness beyond the head of the Creeper Trail. And it has met with a lot of excitement, and we've got ideas that are a little different. For instead of having a ribbon cutting, we want to have another kind of cutting, and we'll go into more detail after we work those out. But thank you, because we believe that by taking advantage of our bike friendliness, 250,000 people ride the Creeper Trail every year. If we can get them to continue their ride all along through Abingdon, then that's more traffic for us. So we'll be working through the TAC committee, through the Park and Pecan group, about what does it mean to be bike friendly, about what are bike friendly amenities. And just to give you a couple of examples, it might mean having a hose at your business so you can rinse off your bike. It might be having a bike pump. It might be bike racks. Kevin Worley says, just be careful if you're on Main Street. We don't want to block Main Street. So under the direction of Kevin Worley and Tanya Triplett, the Main Street businesses need to work that way. But everybody else will be working with TAC committee on that. So thank you for that. And then the last thing I will mention is Abingdon in Bloom. We had the Main Street Old-Fashioned Christmas. It was met by the merchants with great success. We had one Main Street merchant who said she took our effort And she spent a little bit of money promoting it through her Facebook, and she had one of her biggest days ever. And this wasn't a newcomer. This is somebody who's been in business for more than a decade. So we went to the community. We found out, and I've got these cards on the table back there, that Abingdon already had an event every weekend in April. So what we decided to do is tie it all together. We're Abingdon in Bloom. We're going to start it with a merchant open house the Sunday before Easter, so you can get your Easter presents all lined up. Great buy-in by the merchants. They're very complimentary, and we want to continue this model. But it starts with Garden Day at Fairview, then the merchant open house. The Abingdon Gardens open up on April 1st. Then William King has their Art in Bloom that it's a national fundraising event that floats around to different museums. And they take classic paintings, and then they bring in floral designers who take inspiration from the paintings to create floral arrangements. So by virtue of the fact that they're fresh flowers, this is a 3 to 4 day presentation. Then we have the Garden Fair on April 6th and 7th, opening day of the Abingdon Farmers Market April 7th, then the William King fundraiser April 13th and 16th, Earth Day April 21st, and then the Virginia Creeper Fest on April 28th. So thank you for your support. We are working to make sure that as far southwest and as Damascus begin developing their tourism assets, that we remain the center of the activity, and they go to all of these wonderful things around us, but Abingdon is the place to eat, sleep, stay, play, and repeat. Thank you. Any questions?
I just wanted, one of the things you kind of left out as you were speaking was the January jams. And the January jams have been bringing a lot of people in here. I know this, Sarah has is the guidance on the bands, and there's been some killer bands. Having Booker T there was just, I had, my place is almost full with Booker T fans. And so, and of course St. Paul and the Broken Bones, which we wish they would come back. Hint, that they were a great group a couple of years ago. But there are really quality musicians that people come from all over. I had people come as far from Baltimore in January to come to this.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because Sarah has built a brand and a reputation. I mean, every year it gets a little easier to find these acts because they're starting to seek her out. She's booked several bands that have gone on to bigger festivals. I think one band that you had was on the late night show the very next week.
That's St. Paul.
Yeah. So she's built the brand. She's built the destination. It's not Bristol's. It's not anybody else's. She's done an Abingdon brand on that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And I think that was to begin with one of Greg Kelly's brainchildren, so I'll let him take a bow for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. And so now we are at discussion regarding budget work sessions. I'm trying to run through this.
And you are.
Update on request from a resident to vacate a town right-of-way located near 243 Fugate Street. Matt Bullock, Director of Construction and Public Services.
You got a hot day.
Yeah, I didn't eat dinner.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. It's good to see you again tonight. I agree. It's always important to run through the agenda items. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
This item was on the agenda last month, and it was referred to staff and some various committees for additional consideration. My understanding is that the Muster Ground Committee and the Abingdon Parks and Recreation Committee have both reviewed this and found no useful need for this property. I will be happy to listen to your discussion and answer any questions you may have. I do know that the property owner, Mr. Hoke, is here. Mr. Hoke is also here, and he'll be available to answer any questions you may have. So,
No questions, but I'm the chair of the Muster Ground Committee. The Muster Ground Committee met and went over there and looked around the property. There is no practical use or application for that property. In fact, part of it is underwater. So, and then the rest of it is about 3 foot of mud. So as we talked about the possible usages, it is would be better usage for Mr. Hope to have that, the access to it, than it would be us. He was very helpful in pointing out the lines and the pins where they were, and so we had the Muster Grounds Committee had no objections whatsoever.
Council, anybody else have any questions? Mr. Kelly?
I would just say, Madam Mayor, members of council, that Ms. Eisenhower and I drove out to this property and viewed it on the map and where it's marked off, and I have to concur. There is absolutely no future potential use for the town of Abingdon in this property. So,
Okay.
that said, I would recommend that we authorize well, you don't need to take any action, but that we move forward with the next phase of abandoning this.
Council, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to go ahead and, based on what we discussed here tonight, go ahead and abandon that property. We don't have any use for it.
Actually, the next step would be to have a public hearing, so we would need to have a public hearing.
Since we've been in this and seen this, do we need viewers to do this, or can we do this without the viewers?
I think the way the ordinance is.
We have to have the viewers?
In my opinion, you need the viewers.
Okay.
I suppose that's a legal question, but in my opinion, you need the viewers.
Okay. So the motion would be to appoint, three viewers?
To have a public hearing. Is that the next step, Ms. Eisenhower?
Okay, so we're gonna authorize you to, advertise the public hearing. Is that the next step? Council, do I have a motion to that effect?
Well, I'll move that we have a public hearing on the vacation of the property, the right-of-way that's located near 243 Fugit Street.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. Thank you.
you.
Now we are at discussion regarding budget work sessions, March 8 and 12 for departmental budgets, and March 20 for non-departmental budgets. Chuck called something to my attention earlier, was that if we hear the non-departmentals on the 20th, do we need another date to
Workshop.
decide on the allocation, or do you want to hear their request and make the decision that day?
These are gonna be at noon, I assume?
Yes.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that we usually had to schedule another session to make determination on it was it got so late. You know, it would be 9 or 10, 11 o'clock. You know, I think we probably can come up with trying to figure out what the, you know, in one fell swoop, what our non-departmentals will be. Do you think, I mean, it's my opinion, I don't know what anybody else thinks.
It's gonna be a long day, but I'm willing to do it if you don't, you know, you're either gonna have a long day or you're gonna come back for another meeting, so it's up to council however you wanna address that.
Mayor, I'd rather have a long day.
I'd rather have a long day too, but
And by way of clarification, this is for the non-departmentals, is that correct?
Right.
Mayor, I have a question. I have on my calendar March 28th for a budget work session. Is that?
No, that, Greg sent an email, I had asked for 5 dates. He sent an email telling the possible dates, and the 26th, 5th, 26th, and 29th were actually,
Whatever, at the end of March, whatever it was.
yeah, 26th, 27th, and 29th. We never did have the 28th on there.
Okay.
But those are 3 that if we need to extend the first 3 dates we picked, those are the next 3 dates we can
Okay, but
extend
we
it.
don't have it scheduled right now.
No.
Okay.
There was also a April date of the 17th, I think,
I was out.
in case we needed to tweak anything before the final advertisement.
I was out and.
Are you out that
I'm out
day?
April.
Okay.
Well, for a good part of April.
So we have March the 8th at 12 o'clock, March the 12th at 12 o'clock, and March the 20th at 12 o'clock. Okay?
And
All
we're-
of you who are candidates for the Abingdon Town Council, if you're in this room, you've heard the date.
Or on TV, you're watching.
Or if you're on the iPad.
You're really gonna need this, so.
And I assume council would want us to provide lunch for those days?
Probably should for a 12 o'clock meeting.
Hopefully lunch, not dinner.
Okay. Very good. Moving right along. We are down to discussion. So would you please let Mr. Banner know that we are, oh, he's back there. You heard me. I saw you leave. I thought you left.
Escort Sam out.
Okay, okay.
No more bad news.
Okay. Very good. Discussion regarding acceptance of property located at 507 Butt Street via assignment of note and deed of trust to satisfy real estate taxes and blight abatement expenses. Miss Deb Eisenhower.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and distinguished council. This matter is on the agenda this evening to make the determination of the council's desire to hold a public hearing possibly next month. Pursuant to the requirements under Virginia Code 1950, 15.2, 1800, to determine whether you'd like to accept this real property or the assignment of a note and deed of trust to the real property at 507 Butt Street. Okay, there's a lot of history that we found on things in general, but to provide economy, I'd like to say this structure sits on 5 lots in the Haney subdivision, which is over near Hagee Street area. And the Brown family owned the property, had purchased it from Pearl Eads and Doris Hurl in 2002. She financed, or the two ladies financed this, and within about 8 years, both Browns had passed away. The property fell into disrepair, a lot of debt with taxes and such, and became a blight. We had worked with the children to remedy some of these situations, but it has now been passed to us if you choose to accept that. Town of Abingdon Legal Department was initially approached last year regarding an assignment of the note and deed of trust from B&H Lending Services. Ms. Eads has passed away. Doris Harrell is approaching quite an advanced age, and regarding the property at 507 Butt Street, we've been in communication with Ms. Hurl's attorney, her nephew Philip, who's drafted an assignment of note to the deed of trust with regard to the property. It's up to you, our governing body, to make this decision as to going forward and setting a public hearing for next month.
Is this a free and clear?
It would be, as far as we are concerned, because we would be doing the foreclosure, but there are things that have to be done. There is a number of debts that are owed to the town that we would be able to collect if we had the property and made a determination as to whether the structure is sound enough to keep. It seems that our own staff has drawn the conclusion that this might be best if there was a demolished structure. It might be a good idea, we talk about this next month also, whether to possibly hire an objective home inspection professional to make that call along with our professionals. But there's several $1,000s that we could collect. There's also several $1,000s in taxes that the county would certainly be realizing. And you look at all that and decide whether it's worth the trouble. I think some of you have heard the adage, no gift is
free. No free gift is free.
No free gift comes quite that way. But one thing that we found, and Jason has given you plats on that, is that the edge of the property, if you'll look on your white map, and I did the highlighting on one section, you'll notice that it is contiguous to the urban trail, which is an advantage to think about. And with about 1.5 acres of green space, which is what it could potentially be, you have talked in terms of an additional dog park or just green space there close to the urban trail.
And there is no other park down there?
There is not.
Small
The-
dog.
The current tax assessment on the real estate is $113,000, but that's a little misleading because $88,000 of that is given to the structure. And these assessments are done without an interior inspection. I don't think it would have made it quite that far. There have been a number of problems. I've talked with the police chief about the problems with the making of manufacturing of illegal drugs and other substances within the house that are a health concern. Further, the design integrity has been lost via many, many build-ons and what's the expression, cobbled situations that haven't really preserved. There's been an enormous amount of leaking. It would just need to be evaluated by someone objectively and then to compare the costs with that. Do you have other questions?
So what you're asking us is, do we want you to advertise this for a public hearing?
Exactly. So that we can talk further.
I'd like to offer some comments, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Please do.
I want to make sure that before council takes any action on this, that you understand, we are not getting this property. We are only, somebody is trying to assign the deed of trust to us, which would mean that we would have to foreclose on this property. Anybody from the general public could buy this property. And so the uncertainty is whether or not it would ultimately ever wind up in the town's hands. If it did wind up in the town's hands, keep in mind that, as Ms. Eisenhower said, probably the only use for the town for this would be demolition of the property. So you're going to have the cost of having to do the demolition, and then if there's any mitigation of any of the drug residues that have taken place as a result of the manufacturing that has gone on there, that too will have to be taken into consideration. So all that is being given to us is the assignment of a deed of trust. The current deed of trust holder could do exactly what they're asking us to do, is to take control of the deed of trust and foreclose on it. And I want the council to be perfectly aware of that before we do anything, that we may not wind up with this property if that's your goal, ultimate goal. And we're going to have some expense involved in it if we do wind up with it in having to demo this property and take all the precautions that are necessary. There's probably asbestos.
There is some asbestos.
That's involved, and I do know it has a long history of manufacturing of drugs that took place in this house.
But those are things that you can come up with for this public hearing that's going to be coming up, that you can come up with the demolition, possible demolition costs. One of the things that I see as an advantage if we do take the deed of trust is that we have the dictation of putting in restrictive covenants or paring down the lot size to where that we could convey the part that the urban path comes through. We could go ahead and convey that over the urban path part. That could be part of the deed that we conveyed it onto them.
Well, it still has to go through the foreclosure process, and that's what I want to make clear, is there's no guarantee that we will ultimately get any of it or all of it. And you know, this is a very cloudy legal process to go through.
We are owed, come May 31st, over $2,000 in real estate tax.
How much is the county owed?
$7,800. The assessed value of the 5 lots is $25,000. Liens for abatements, we have $1,000 or so there, and possible additional expenses for foreclosure, tree trimming, and demolition. We'll try to have some figures that might be applicable.
Yeah, I think didn't one of the trees fall over and hit one of the neighbors' garage or something the other day, I think I saw.
There's been a tree cut down there, I was by there today.
Yeah, they had one where it fell over and hit the garage on, it'd be a Colonial Road address, but I can't remember what the block is.
The Everett's house, I'm not sure about that either.
So I would think I would feel more comfortable before we allow a $750 advertisement for a public hearing is to hear some more, recommendation, if you will, as to what the costs are gonna be and I'd like to have a little bit more of a cost-benefit analysis before we go through that, especially in light of the fact that we may not wind up owning the property. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally a foreclosure is, you advertise it on the courthouse steps and everybody has the right to show up and bid on the property. The adjoining property owners may show up and bid on it, I don't know. The lien holder traditionally will bid in what is owed to them on it, but if somebody bids more than that, they're gonna wind up with it.
Well, conversely, we can set the bid of what we would accept for it too. So we could set that bid that we accept for it, it's slightly higher than maybe people would wanna pay.
It doesn't have to be absolute.
It doesn't have to be absolute.
Yeah, but I caution you, if you set it higher than that, anything over and above what's owed, you still have to pay that.
Right.
So you have to pay that to any residual heirs that would be there.
But that also is not the it's not as much as the $25,000 that, or the money that's owed that,
right.
The county and the town and, anything else, so.
And don't get me wrong, I'd love to see that place cleaned up and gone.
I'd rather for private owners to do that than us though, and I hate to see it removed from the tax rolls and the opportunity for somebody to make something privately good out of that. I would rather wait and see if that could take place before we do anything.
We've waited over 12 years. I'd say Chief.
I didn't know that.
I would say Chief Sullivan probably could tell you, I don't know how many calls have been logged to that.
I didn't.
But I would be willing to bet there was at least probably 50 or more calls that have been logged to that residence.
And I would truly be anxious to see what the expense would be entailed with having an objective home inspection.
Yeah, I'd like to see the expenses if you don't mind.
How is the loan company, are they wanting to move this, are they, exponentially, do they really want to see it doing fast, or they want to, can we wait till like May to do this?
It's Mrs. Harrell.
Oh, it is Ms. Harrell.
She is the sole
Lord.
survivor of
How old
that.
is she now? She has to be like 90?
Now, we're not talking about people's age.
I would just want to help you. She's just an old.
She had advanced.
But that's Philip Harrell, the lawyer's mother, right?
Yes, his aunt.
His aunt.
Yes.
Okay.
And it could be assigned to anyone, it doesn't have to be assigned to the
To us.
government necessarily.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's get just a little bit more information, including some input from Mr. Harrell in writing,
Very good.
and then bring it back next month if
Sounds
you
like a
will.
plan.
We can do that.
That being said, I also want to point out that any liability from damages that occur from that property are not damages from the town of Abingdon, they are damages from the existing property owner.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're down to update concerning the Meadows Development, Stephen Spangler, Marathon Realty Corporation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. I brought some friends and hopefully some good news. I think I need to get a,
I think you've got it
there
started.
we Good evening. The purpose of this meeting was really to provide a project update for the commercial component of the Meadows development. Part of that, we want to just provide a leasing, sales, and construction update. We want to show a comparison of actual performance where we stand right now versus the initial project assumptions back in 2015 that we've all heard through several meetings, as well as what Davenport put together for financial projections for the project. As part of this presentation, we've been given permission to do a partial reveal of some of our private investment partners, both inline leasing users as well as out parcel users, and then correct some misinformation that was stated at the last planning commission by somebody that spoke in a public forum. Next. Can anybody guess what this signifies? 90%. Anybody care to guess? No. Okay.
That's what you have under contract?
This is what we have under binding obligations for our inline commercial project. So we've got permitted 86,000 square feet of what we'll call lease space. 62,000 square foot, obviously Food City, and then 24,000 plus or minus inline retail. 77,300 are signed binding leases that obligates these users to no less than 5 years, in a lot of cases 10-year lease terms. These are not letters of intent. These are binding lease obligations, which gets us to a 90% occupancy 2 years before we projected it to occur. In commercial nomenclature, this is called a stabilized property. Generally, there's a lease-up period. Industry average is anywhere between 85 and 90% for an existing property. We're already at 90% a year before we open any business. This represents 6 new uses to Abingdon, some of which you'll see later on in the presentation. Again, a commitment that we made to the council to bring in new businesses, and we're successful so far in doing so. Meadows out parcels, there are 7 permitted that will be for sale. Currently, we have 4 under contract and some even sold. I will say at the Planning Commission meeting, just to ensure that we are, everybody's on the same page, it was stated in the public comment that we had sold the property to a hotel. That is correct. It was misstated which hotel it was sold to. Yeah, so, that individual, I won't name names, but stated that we had sold it to an existing hotel in the town of Abingdon. That is incorrect. It will be a new hotel used for the town of Abingdon. These 4 contracts represent 4 new and incremental uses. When I say incremental, one is actually building a second unit into the town of Abingdon. So they will keep their existing location, but we'll have a new full-service facility, which you'll see later as part of this project. So our commitment, developer commitment, does it check the boxes so far? I think a resounding yes, and you'll see how. Significant private investment. We've already got $35 million committed. At full build-out, there'll be more dollars allocated to the use up to $45 or $50 million, but tangible, quantifiable investment, committed, binding, is already over $35 million. Private investment. 10 new incremental uses for the Abingdon, with more to come, as we've stated. And again, all projections that we looked at, we conservative when we put things on paper. Risk mitigation, we all looked to that. Davenport did the same thing, but with just understanding our business, understanding the pent-up demand in Abingdon, and executing that, we're 2 years effectively ahead of schedule. Okay, this is probably the part that people are excited about. Who are some of these uses? This is a parcel list. We weren't given permission by everyone to disclose the uses, but we did get permission for quite a bit to share with the group tonight. So the first group of uses that we can disclose are Jersey Mike's, Great Clips, Noré the Nail Bar, obviously Food City, Holiday Inn Express, which is the hotel, that will be building a new unit at the Meadows. Eastman Credit Union is that incremental user. We've talked to them. We actually lease to them on Valley Street. They've re-upped their next renewal. They're committed to keeping that as the boutique downtown location while they'll do a full service out parcel use at this project. Moe's, Starbucks. I shamelessly put my dog in the presentation because we've got a 6,000 square foot pet store, national pet store as our junior anchor, committed and signed. They just have their different time frame on when they like to announce their uses. So that was a little bit of a placeholder, and as you can see, she's happy to see that use coming out of it. And G2K Games, that's a little bit, obviously they're in town. When they first approached us, we were a little hesitant to talk to them. And when I show you 90% and 4 out of 7 out parcels, I could be at 100% right now, or we could be at 100% right now. We've had to turn away a lot of interested parties from the town. And, you know, we appreciate their interest, but that's not what we committed on doing. Everybody's been understanding. We explain it, the reasons why, that we're looking at incremental tax gains and new revenues for the town. And but just the interest level in general has been outstanding. But G2K Games had that conversation initially with them. They made it known that the reason they were having to leave their existing location was because a new restaurant was coming to that location. The owner of that property had committed or was going in that direction. Actually had a conversation with Mr. Kelly and just said, would this be okay? And, you know, since there was a net new business coming to the town of Abingdon, we felt that that would be acceptable to allow them into our project. Any questions so far? Now we'll kind of diverge into a portion of the project and its importance to what we're doing on the commercial aspect, and that's the recreational development. And it really has allowed us to enhance our marketing and recruitment. It is a unique project. It is unique development. You don't see something like this every day, and everybody's excited. The Jersey Mikes are excited about selling the sandwiches to the group of kids after the game and things along those lines. And it has been a significant component to our current success in allowing us to be ahead of schedule in our development timeline. And that kind of transitions to the next point of exceeded economic projections. Not only are we getting that critical mass in place immediately, but it's going to only aid in the long-term retention of those uses. You know, this is going to be built and developed in such a way that it's going to be there 30, 40, 50 years down the road plus. And so getting those uses in is important, but keeping them is just as important. And having that recreational facility adjacent to the project is paramount to that success. And then just the project stabilization schedule. Everything that we projected, again, being conservative, the way that Davenport looked at their numbers, had a stabilized project, I used that term earlier, 3 years down the road. We're effectively stabilized now. So all these will come online on day one, and we're excited to have everybody as part of the project. And then residual development impacts. Marathon, KVAT, we also have we're ownership stake in Washington Crossings and the town center. We're working on a very exciting comprehensive redevelopment of the Washington Crossings Center. It's obviously an older center. Could use some updating. It's in the overlay district. With what we're working on and making good progress on, it's going to be another key component to the Exit 7 entry corridor. They obviously would have to adhere to all the requirements and stipulations of the certificate of appropriateness, but hopefully in the next few months we can be a little bit more open and you may see this particular third party coming and talking and can be a little bit open in what that really is and what it means, but it is, I can say in this form, that it's very exciting. And then Town Center. We're already working on several options there. We don't control the Kmart box at this time. Kmart still has it under lease. But we are ready and willing and planning for when we do have control of the box to be able to reuse that and bring in new businesses for that location as well. So they're all different projects, but they all are cohesive projects as they're on Exit 17, and they all hinge on the development of the ball fields at that current location. And then I've just got one more slide, and this is really just kind of, I mentioned in the initial slide, is our projection benchmark. Obviously, Davenport's a qualified third party, unbiased. They put together numbers based on our initial projections back in 2015. I can sit here and say what we actually have done. So assumptions are assumptions. You're only as good as how qualified they are. But as you go through the development process, those assumptions become commitments. And right now, they gave a scenario of if the developer got to a 50% development projection. I think we've demonstrated we're already well past that. But that was their break-even scenario. That means you're spending so much on bond obligations, you have enough revenue to pay that debt. But again, that assumes a project stabilization at year 3. That's 2021. We're going to be open in 2019. So you're getting those revenues coming in. And I believe that break-even scenario is a little bit of a misnomer, the way that they qualified it, just because if you're spending that money, you've got infrastructure improvements, Green Springs Road and Cook Street realignment. Because of this project, it's been well documented that Exit 17 has been approved and is ready to be funded and ready to be construction. And if you spent that money, the recreational facility's been completed because the money's been spent. So it's really that a break even. Okay, financially, at 50%, you're at a net neutral position, but you have all of those tangible assets constructed. I think with where we're at, a better scenario to look at, and when we look at 90% in line, a little north of 60% from the acreage of the out parcel perspective, we're right at or a little bit above the 75% development projection. So with that scenario, your annual debt service is satisfied. You've got a $277,000 plus or minus annual average surplus over the 20-year of the assumed bond obligation. After that, again, we're building this to be there for decades. After that bond is satisfied, you've got plus or minus $1.3 million in annual revenues and growing thereafter. And again, you've got the infrastructure improvements, you've got Exit 17, and you've got the recreational facility completed. So that's the end of my presentation. I've got Tim Kirkendall, who's the Vice President over Civil Management and Project Development, to speak a little bit on construction, maybe give a brief update, and then obviously Steve Smith, President and CEO of KVAT Food Store, to state and have some remarks as well. Drop it.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening. Just give you a little update out there on site. As you may see, either coming down the interstate or coming up down Cummings Street, our erosion sediment control is proceeding on. Temporary and permanent road beds are being cut in, stabilized. Work in the ball fields, there's been some blasting there near 81. That's all but concluded. I think they have one more series, and that will take care of the ball field area. We actually started there first and working backwards. On the retail development, blasting's proceeding, and actual cut and fill will start as soon as we finish up pond number 3, hopefully by the end of this week, pending weather. February has not been real kind to us, but we have been proceeding on, so on schedule and moving forward.
Okay.
Any questions for Tim or Stephen? Well, let me just say thank you to the town council, thank you to the past town council, present town council for believing in our company and believing in the projects. And I understand everybody didn't vote for it and maybe doesn't believe in it, but for those who don't, thank you for your service to our town. We're all in the same town. We're all in this together. I do want to brag on the town staff, and I want to brag on both Stephen and Tim and a lot of effort that's gone into this. You know, this project's been going on now for some years, and sometimes we forget some of the progress that we've made over the past time in the work that these gentlemen did working with the town to protect the view sheds, also to protect the architectural integrity of the town of Abington. It certainly added a lot of cost to the projects, but it's also going to make the project a better project, and we're proud to be able to do that. Stephen talked about the recreational complex, and I want to stress that, not only for the youth, which I think we can all agree need that, but also for tourism. And I think for something that I underestimated, and it really came out when we were talking to our prospective tenants, the vision that they see is an access point to the Creeper Trail and 500 town parking lots or parking places to be able for people to use as access to the Creeper Trail. That's something that we really don't have right now in the town, and our tenants see that as extremely valuable. You know, probably the number one question, or number two question I get, number one is when's the store going to be open? But number two is what are you going to do with these other properties that you now own? And I can tell you that based on Stephen's history, I have a lot of confidence in what he's going to do with these properties, and it's very encouraging to me. But I will tell you that an awful lot of interest that we generate is contingent on the sports complex and access to the Creeper Trail and the parking. So I can't emphasize that enough. We're going to make you proud with the Meadows project. I think we'll make you proud with the town center and also with Washington Crossings. You know, we talk a lot in Abington about local being better, and I think this is the case where local is better. It could be some other developer from New York or New England or California that own these, but you got a developer that lives here, has pride in this town, and wants to see these developments be something special. And I'll just say one more time, if it wasn't for this development, both the recreation part of it and the retail part of it, Exit 17 would just be a pipe dream right now. And it's next up. When 14's fixed, I've been told by VDOT and by our state legislators that it's next up. And I think that's pretty exciting, particularly speaking from somebody who lives south of the interstate. So anyway, we're excited about that. And that will help the traffic as much as anything that can help this town. Thank you all again.
I do have one quick
Yes,
question
ma'am.
for you. Do you know when Kmart will be kind of untangled with the lease, when you'll get to have that?
I mean, we do. I don't know if necessarily I'm at liberty to discuss that. I would say that it's in the near future.
Sooner rather than later.
Sooner rather than later, but it's obviously a contractual matter with Kmart. But currently, they do control the box, and there's really nothing we can do other than plan for when we will retain ownership. And we've made a lot of headway in people looking and interested and are kind of brainstorming on how we can repurpose that box.
Okay, thank you.
I think the bottom line is people are interested in our town, and that's encouraging.
Well, while you, go ahead. One quick question. I'm not sure I was clear. I know you said the Food City would open 2019, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, are those other stores going to open it? Did I hear you say the other?
Yeah, the beauty of it,
Elements
you
gonna
know,
be
I
open at
know
the same time?
Eastman Credit Union's currently going through the certificate of appropriateness process, so obviously they've got to get their permits. They're going to build on their parcel. They've got to conform to the town regulations, but we'll deliver those pads sometime this summer, and every indication from those that we have already sold or under contract is they intend to start construction in unison or a little bit behind us. The inline use is absolutely. We've got those leases signed. We'll be building those buildings, in unison with our Food City, and that's the plan, and that's the ideal situation, and we're working to that situation where you have an opening of 5, 6, 7, 8 businesses at the same time.
I'm still the optimist. If we get dry weather, I'm still pushing him for December of 18. But
I get a visit every day.
Well, one of the things I'd like to say, because I don't think we've said it enough, but is for the sports complex project, which was actually above what we could afford as a town without encumbering so many future generations or future councils, is your all's the gift of the $2.2 million, and then about $4 to $5 million worth of grade work. I don't know anyone else that would have given us, well, $6.2 to $7.2 million to make this happen. that's a tremendous commitment, in my estimation, from you all. And thank you for doing that, and I'm hoping that we're gonna make you proud. We're gonna make you as proud as hopefully we'll be of you.
Thank you. We're proud to do it. We know the need as much as anybody, and it's truly a great public-private partnership because everybody wins, including the taxpayers at the end of the day, and the customers, the kids, and hopefully it'll be a win-win.
Yeah, the kids especially.
Yes.
Right. And by the way, I would like to put out, while we're right here right now, because there's some misnomers going around that and I've heard this from Little League parents that say that Little League isn't going to be playing on these fields, and it's the town's total. It's our goal. That's where the Little Leagues will be playing, on those fields, and I think that is have been misspoken and taken out of context. So Little Leagues will be playing on those fields.
Anybody care to tell us who else will be playing on those fields? Travel ball.
Oh, travel ball, probably on the weekends. Yeah, that's Kingsport. Kingsport, I think, is serving correct. They took out a golf course in order to put travel ball fields in because they were bringing in $300,000 yearly instead of the golf courses were costing money out of Kingsport's pocket. So.
And I think that's one of the key reasons that we've had such a fairly easy time with the hotels and restaurants, which is the big tax revenue source for the town of having them located there is because of the recreation facilities and the ball fields.
Absolutely. I think it's a key marketing component of this particular project. It's a unique project in a great real estate location. So, that's just a parcel list of who we have committed binding. There's 5, 6 other restaurants and uses that we're in talks with that, maybe in a few months I can come back and say we're 100% and this is the remainder of the uses for the project.
Come back before July 1.
Or we'll watch you on the iPad.
We'll watch on the iPad, that's right.
And will we have adults playing on that field as well?
I don't think that's even decided.
The fields are designed for all levels of baseball and all levels of soccer and football, so it has the potential to accommodate all of our recreational needs. I guess if there is a difficult thing about it, it will be the scheduling.
Which could be any worse than having 600 children trying to play on one Little League field. That's about as tough a schedule. I've seen those schedules come out on Facebook. It's a pretty difficult. I'm glad I I am not saddled with coming up with those schedules. They're tough.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good evening.
Thank you.
Good news. Okay, council, one more thing that's not on the agenda, but I need to ask Mr. Kelly something. We received a letter that Dr. Moore wants to renegotiate his lease and not with the terms that were currently existing. Does that require a new motion? Because
Well, Madam Mayor, I've already taken it upon myself, and after consulting with some of you all, just to assume that we would want to attempt to negotiate that. So today we dispatched a letter to Mr. Hurt, Dr. Moore's attorney, to sit down and negotiate with that. So my intent would be, after we get to that point, is to bring it back before council at that point in time, and then you all can make a motion whether to accept it or not accept it at that point in time.
okay, but the last motion was for you to execute all documents. So since this is a new contract, based on Mr. Hurt's letter to us, we will need to renegotiate, and the council will need to approve it. Is that correct?
Yes, we'll bring it back. There were some discrepancies in the dates which led this to resulting in having to renegotiate the entire lease.
Okay, thank you very much. Resolutions, none. And now we are on old business matters not on the agenda. And Ms. Patterson, discussion regarding research for attorney representation and fees, including information and suggestions for a council member or members in regard to the FOIA appeal. Cindy Patterson.
Yes, Mayor Lowe, thank you for that introduction. At this time, I'd like to table this issue for a future meeting. I'm going to have new information that I'd like to present with it all in one time, so I'd like to do that.
Okay, so we are down to council member reports, and I will start with Mr. Craig.
Mayor, I don't have anything to report.
Okay, Ms. Patterson.
Same thing, I always report, Madam Mayor. I go to all my meetings and I do the town's bidding, whatever I need to do.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. McBath. I always do what I'm supposed to do with the town of Abingdon. I do all my work that I'm supposed to do and go to all my meetings, do the town's bidding. Did you hear that okay?
Okay.
Did you hear that, Mr. Morgan? Okay, thank you.
You didn't hear us last time though, did you? I like your commercials. Anyway, I only have a couple things to bring up. One of them is and I think one of them is answered, and that was about the deer. We talked about the overpopulation of deer. It looks like that we can discuss that next meeting, and we'll not need to provide a letter. We thought I was going to ask council if they wanted to provide a letter to say that we were interested in that. We did not know if we would execute that, but we needed to go ahead and tell them we were interested. That doesn't have to happen now because they've gotten some leeway on that. And then we have had a wonderful person leading us in the Park Street Pecan area. As you all might know, there is Mr. Craig has championed this project. It's $1.4 million improvement on sidewalks and lighting infrastructure on Pecan and Park Streets. The group has organized, the Park Street and Pecan Street group has organized kind of under the leadership of Emily Mayo, and Emily is with, well, it's not Heartwood, but it's not Round the Mountain, but it's one of the organizations that is out Heartwood. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head.
Appalachian Spring.
Janet. I'm at a loss, but she is excellent. She's an excellent coordinator. She has brought that group together, and they're really moving forward. I think that by the time the sidewalks and the lights are done down there, you're looking at an additional experience that you're going to have down there with some of the marketing abilities and people who might be buying property down there to either A, build, or B, do restoration, house restoration and stuff like that, building restoration. So, there's one more thing I'm supposed to say, and I have no idea. I can't remember what it was. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Howard.
Just to go along with what Rick mentioned about the Park Street project, we had a good representation last Thursday at the fire station. A lot of good comments, a lot of good feedback and information provided by the engineers and architects. But,
we did.
Just to report on the fire department, we're at 101 calls for the year, and we're about 20 above last year, so kept us on the budget this year.
Are we out of
We
county?
may need to run.
Yeah.
No, we're okay right now. But, we may need a little increase in this funding. That's all I have.
Okay. So the one thing that I would like for the, when you bring the deer thing back to the council next month, is I'd like to know how you address injured deer in this bow and arrow hunting expedition in the town limits. I have seen that on a regular basis, and it's not pretty.
You're
So
talking about deers that are hurt, like by hitting cars, or ones
I'm
that are
talking about deers that are injured with a bow and not killed. And so I would like to see that, when you put that together, I would like to see that addressed as to how that would be taken care of. Not tonight, not tonight.
They have a slideshow thing, or a
Right.
PowerPoint too. I thought the deadline had been moved, so it's going to be after our meeting.
It is, but the vote is going to come after the meeting, correct?
The vote comes during the meeting, next meeting.
That's after our deadline.
Right, but you extended the deadline, so that's what I'm trying to, because I thought by your extension of your
When's our next
deadline,
meeting?
that meant that we were gonna be able to get our meeting in and then vote on it, then you could take it to the. Is that?
Yeah, I guess that'll work.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if we do, I'll be glad to. Well, you all tell me what you think. Do we need to go ahead and move out and ask to say we want a letter of intent?
I don't wanna move on it until I hear some more.
Well, no, that's it.
Second of next month,
Yeah,
and
second.
the deadline was the 4th, as I understood.
Right.
Okay.
If you'll vote on that day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what we
Just
vote
make sure
on.
you get the information to us in time that we can read it and understand it, and maybe email you back if we have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
'Cause I do.
My invitation was-
I mean, I don't like 'em eating my bushes, but I also don't want an injured deer laying in my front yard. Okay, thank you. Okay, Tony and I and Greg, had a phone call with the Lieutenant Governor, about the, charges for police transport for our folks that don't have mental health facilities around here to go to. And I don't know, Tony, if you have, do you have any updates with that? Tony had some really good suggestions, and I know you got the delegates' attention because they've called me, so hopefully you'll hear something, or we all will hear something soon about that. I attended the fire department meeting, and it was a very good meeting, and we did find that there was a road that was planned to be closed that I think at this point, this council wasn't in favor of closing. And the citizens' input was great, 'cause I it would have passed right over my head without their input, so I do appreciate that.
And Matt was very instrumental, Matt
Matt
Wallach, in showing us where those were, and then also saying that it was the perfect time to catch it, because then that could be eliminated.
Right.
And that's on the urban path, is what that was actually, where that is.
Right. Now, I'm gonna tread very carefully here, but I'm going to make a statement. 4 of the 5 council members went to Richmond to attend an EEOC hearing. All of us signed a confidentiality agreement that was required by the EEOC. It's federal law. That is not a choice that we can or can't make. That's why Mr. Craig's motion was stated the way it was as far as the confidentiality is concerned. I've had several questions from Ms. Nocia and Mr. Walters about the newsletter that appeared in the VML ICMA newsletter. I can state unequivocally that the first time I saw or heard any of the information that was in that newsletter was from the newsletter. So that really is all I think any of us can say to the public.
And it's going to go to jail.
Yeah, so we have done all we can possibly do, and we can't do any more than that. So I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate you understanding that federal law supersedes most everything that we do here at the Abingdon Town Council. Now, is there anything else? Council, we have appointments to boards and committees. We have the Tourism Advisory Board. We have the Economic Development Authority, and Sustain Abingdon. We have gotten an email asking us to put Sustain Abingdon off. Council, would you like to go into closed session to discuss these appointments? I think I would like to. We've got a matrix, we've got some applications, and if somebody will make that motion, I would appreciate it.
I move that we go into executive session.
Bob moved, would you
Oh, I'm
second?
sorry, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So the closed session is section 2.2-3711A1 for the purpose of considering applications to reappoint the position on the Tourism Advisory Board and the Economic Development Authority. Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mayor White?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I got a feeling we're gonna come back to an empty
Aye,
house.
yeah.
Hey, but it's echo. I don't know where that dollar came from. It's been laying there for years, actually.
Oh, wow, those are pretty cool.
When we went to, land commissioner training, he wore wife's glasses. They really look good on him.
Well, you know, you gotta use what you got.
There you go. Okay. Man.
Okay. So, could I, ask for a motion to go back into
So moved.
open session?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Craig or Mr. Howard, that second?
Craig,
Both
okay.
first.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. And would you read the certification, please?
I will. Whereas the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative record vote in accordance with provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the Town Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting required by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Town Council.
I so certify.
I so certify.
I so certify.
Also certify.
And I so certify.
Very good. Council, we have, 2 appointments available to the Economic Development Authority. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to appoint one of those positions, to Nathan Lewis Berg.
Do the other.
And,
Do both of them.
oh, okay, and the second one, Mr. Alex Brown, Mr. Berg and Mr. Brown.
Okay, who
Awesome.
both
Who
submitted?
both submitted applications for the Economic Development Authority.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second promotion.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
And Mayor Lo?
Aye. Okay, now we have one appointment to fill the expired term of Susan Yates, who is not eligible for reappointment. Council, do we have a motion?
I'll nominate Lisa Quigley for that position.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. Okay, and we are gonna put off Sustain Abingdon. Council, we have one thing that I need to ask if you want to do this. We, as you know, have a deputy clerk right now. Would you like to authorize Mr. Kelly to advertise, to do a search for a clerk, or how do you wanna handle that? We currently do not have a clerk. We do have a fantastic deputy clerk.
I will say that the charter does call for a clerk, so it is necessary that we do this. The last time we went through this process, we did advertise for it, and I'm happy to submit that advertisement out and report back to council, and then you all can select perhaps a committee of 2 to be in on the interviewing.
Are you saying we can't appoint Kim?
Well, you can, it's your all's call, but, you know, you'll have to discuss that with Kim. I'm not sure
Okay.
that
I think
Kim.
we ought to put an advertisement
Okay,
out,
that's okay with me.
and Ms. Kingsley then has her own options.
And then I'd like to ask a question. What's your timetable on how long you think this search is going to take? You think it'll be 60 days, 90 days?
A good advertisement would be probably at least a month, and then we can get the applicants in, screen those, and then start interviewing probably in 6 weeks, thereabouts.
All right.
Now, council, I don't know if you saw in your, Virginia Town magazine, the town of Percival is just about the same size as ours, with about close to the same number of employees, not quite. And they have an advertisement in this magazine, and it's already pretty entailed. And the only thing that I would like to ask before we put this ad out is that, do you want this advertisement to include being the clerk for the Planning Commission and their minutes and the Historic Preservation Review Board and their minutes? Because that's where we have a little bit of a quagmire. We don't really have anybody doing that. So do you want to add that to the Town of Abingdon clerk's position, or, not?
Can we hear recommendations, Mr. Kelly?
Well, it's never been done that way, before, but, I can give it some thought and review whatever Kathy's got there from Percival.
Right.
In terms of seeing how they are doing it. It might limit the number of applicants that you get, it might not. We can explore
But there's a
it.
possibility that, you'd have to include a larger salary, but there's a possibility that you could encompass that and have your minutes done in a more timely manner, if you will.
They need to be, the minutes definitely need to be done in a more timely manner. Right now, we're not getting them, a lot of times we're not getting them for here. I don't know if we got them for the public hearings tonight, but literally that's something that's really, and they don't have to be approved minutes. They can just be the minutes that somebody has dissected. So anyway, but I don't know if this is the person to do it. We used to have two people down there, or, and we had Jenny, Carlisle down there. Jenny was there to take minutes in the thing. We got them pretty promptly, and I was real satisfied with that. I don't know if Nancy can't take them or whatever. Does Nancy?
I think that's another issue. I think what we need to talk about right now is whether or not you want to include that in the advertisement. So let me read the advertisement as it is without planning, okay? It says to coordinate, it says salary 55 to 65, depending on qualifications, plus full benefits. The job description is to coordinate and prepare semi-monthly town council agendas, attend town council meetings, record proceedings, draft minutes, maintain minute books, coordinate and disseminate press releases and other information, coordinate publication of all legal notices, maintain, post, and disseminate the official town meeting calendar, and post agendas, minutes, meetings, recordings, press releases, and other notices on the town's website. Bachelor degree supplemented by 3 to 4 years of administrative work experience. Now, I will say that we won't be able to, we've actually got other people in other positions that do some of these other jobs. So Mr. Kelly will need to kind of disseminate what's already been covered.
I need to look at that, and I also need to look at what the charter says that the duties of the clerk are for the town of Abingdon, because they might be very different from what the charter of Percival.
Well, one of the things I think that should be in that also is that person should either have be a certified, the state certification for clerk, or it needs to be an obligation for completion after they're hired within whatever, 2 years or 3 years. I think it's very important. I think that Ms. Rosenbaum thought it was very important to get that certification. So, yeah.
Let's talk about it Thursday work session. We
Okay.
think of that.
In the meantime, Mr. Kelly can research it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can
That's
think
good.
about it too.
Do we need to, can we put that on the agenda then, for Thursday as well?
I would recommend we do the budget stuff first, and then we can talk about it.
Any money left?
And I'm not trying to advertise for Kim because I don't want to lose her completely. But she has already started the clerk's.
Certification?
Yes, she has done that. And she was deputy treasurer in the state year before last.
She's got a deputy clerk deputy treasurer, and paralegal, so she's very qualified.
Who is performing all those job duties, well, or was at the present time now, that was mentioned in the Percival, the
Well-
newspapers
Well,
and all?
it's different staff. It's like, at the
Yeah.
planning commission, we had, Nancy, and as Rick alluded to before her, we had Jenny Carlisle, who was doing those types of things. Sometimes, in the past, the actual, director of planning prepared the minutes. And, I'm technically, right now, until you all remove me, I'm the secretary of the planning commission, and so I have the liberty to pretty much tell whoever I want to prepare the minutes. But what was the other group? Okay, we got planning
And
commission.
historic preservation was that.
HPRB.
Yeah.
PBR.
And what's that?
National Ribbon.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, and we, information technology, press releases, all of that, Neil
We got rid of
does.
some of
and
that.
There was something else in there that somebody else
Yeah,
already does.
I don't see
Yeah.
it being as all-inclusive
Yeah.
as this,
I just-
but I think it can be some crossover perhaps.
Being the clerk is a large job.
Don't you just bring it
And,
up and
yeah,
then-
so yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah, let's just talk about it Thursday. Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Okay, so we're down to announcements, and we've got the Washington County Career and Technical Education Center, February 28th through March 31st at the Arts Depot. Well, that's strange. I've never heard of that before.
What's that? Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know if I've heard it before.
Yeah. Cooking Along the Crooked Road, March 12th, Higher Ed Center. Johnson Memorial Hospital, Shamrock 4 Miler, March 16th. What your company Facebook page needs. New Knowledge, March 21st. Sustain Abingdon Garden Kickoff, March 24th. At Fairview, Abingdon in Bloom, March 24th through April 28th. Tourism is heading that up. And Abingdon Merchant Open House, March 25th, 1 through 5, and Tanya's heading that up.
And you'll see an increase in traffic, April the 13th, 12th, 13th. Bristol Speedway, that's a Bristol race. So we'll have guests coming to town.
And just as an ending note, I found on my credit card bill that they billed me for the Richmond Marriott. So you all might want to look at your credit card bill.
Oh, they
think
do
you were
it.
the only one.
I can give them a credit. Oh, I did too. I'll
Okay.
check it, yeah.
Anything else? We are adjourned.
Okay, guys, Wayne,
Hey,
don't
Chuck.
run real quick, I want to just mention something to you all. This is something that I didn't know, you all probably know this, and I don't know if you picked up on it.